If you expect nothing from someone, you will never be disappointed. And here's why. What's good, everybody? It's Vaughn, and this is where you get that knowledge that you don't get in college. So go ahead and scroll into the description, click the link next to Weeble, and collect your 12 free stocks. Yesterday, me and Big Bro was chopping up, and during the conversation, he let me know that he's learned not to expect too much from people. And when he's dealing with someone, he'll always trust you to be you. And that really resonated with me, especially because of what I recently experienced while I was in Jamaica. But before I get into that, I want you to listen to this short clip where DMX explains why you should trust people to be themselves.
Always trust everyone to be themselves, but trust in the fact that you can see them well. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, trust. It takes too much energy to not trust someone. You know what I mean? It takes too much energy. You ain't got to stay 2 steps ahead of them or whatever. Right. But trust them to be them.
Right. To be themselves.
Trust a snake to bite you. Right. Trust a lion to lie. Trust a thief to steal from you. Like, trust them to be them. Too. But know them when you see them. Right. You know what I mean?
That message cut deep because you should see people as they are and accept them for who they are. So if you see a low life with no life, then you should expect them to be exactly that, a low life. So if you've been following me on Instagram, you may have noticed that I recently put the windows in the house that I'm working on in Jamaica. And just a few days later, there was a big hole in the window because someone with ill intent who refused to repent and had no consent decided to wake up in the middle of the night and throw a rock in the window. And I was in deep sleep counting sheep, so I heard none of this happen. I just woke up in the morning and I went to the bathroom, and as I was walking out of the bathroom, my grandpa approached me and he said he's going to ask the neighbor if he heard what was going on last night. And I said, what happened? And he told me that between 12 and 3 a.m. he heard a bunch of stones being thrown at the house, and at one point it sounded like some glass shattered. And at that point I didn't think much of it because I was completely clueless. Because if you know me, when I'm asleep, I'm out of there. So I proceeded to go upstairs to do my workout. The first strange thing that I noticed is that my neighbor was on her veranda ironing a shirt. Now mind you, this is at about 5:50 a.m. in the morning. And the entire time that I've been working on this house, my neighbor has never been up on her veranda ironing a shirt that early in the morning. But I didn't acknowledge it, and I didn't even tell her good morning, and I'll explain why in a few. So I went upstairs, and the first thing that I noticed is that there was a big hole in the window. So I told my grandpa, I was like, Grandpa, they broke the window. And he came upstairs looking confused, and he was shaking. And right behind him was the electrician that's been working on that house, because he heard when I said the glass was broken. So he came upstairs to look at the window, and while they were looking at the window that was broken, I was making sure that none of the other windows were broken. And then he said that it could have been hail. And I seen a bunch of stone on the neighbor's roof outside of the window. So I knew that it had to be a stone that was thrown at the window. I said, look at all of those stones. There's no way that this was broken by hail. And they looked to see it for themselves, and they were like, yeah, that's a lot of stones. So I went ahead, I finished my workout, I meditated, and then I went downstairs and asked my grandpa if I should call the police to report the incident. And he said yes. So I went ahead and I called the police station and explained the situation to them. And they told me that I actually have to go to the nearest police station in order to report the incident. So my grandfather and I got ready, then we headed over to the police station. And I reported the incident, and then they followed us back to the house so they could take a look at the scene. And they asked me if there's anyone that I thought could have busted the window. And I told them that the only conflict that I had was with the next door neighbor, and it's about a crack in her roof, because she said when it rains that the water was leaking through, and she demanded that I fix it. And I told her no, because it's not my responsibility. After they inspected the scene, they went over to the neighbor's house just so that they could question her and see if she's seen anything happen that night. But instead of coming out and answering the officer's questions, she stayed inside and hid from them. And I knew that she was home because when we pulled into the parking lot, she was standing right outside of her house on her phone. By the time we got to our gate, she had already ran inside, and I thought that was very odd. But we live in a cause and effect world, so I'm going to explain the sequence of events that led up to this situation. So originally, before I started working on this house, both of the houses were having leaking issues. And apparently when it rained, my grandfather was telling me that his side of the house would be flooded, but her side was leaking as well. And back then she paid to stop the leakage, and it fixed my grandfather's side as well. And during that time we had to do some drilling so that we could build columns that'll support the second story of the house. And she claimed that when we were doing that drilling, we opened up the cracks back on her side of the house, and because of that, she wanted us to fix it. And at first, I didn't get the entire backstory. So I was like, no, I'm not going to fix that. That has nothing to do with me. But then my mom and my grandfather explained the entire situation to me. And then I went over to her and she explained to me that I should go ahead and go to the store and get roof coating and apply that because it will resolve the issue. And that was my first mistake. You never want to listen to a woman that knows nothing about nothing. And at the time that this happened, it was September of 2022. So it's been over a year. So I went to the store, I purchased the product, and I paid someone to apply it. And the very next day, it rained cats and dogs. And she came outside so happy because there was no water leaking through her roof. So I thought to myself, okay, problem solved. So now, fast forward to a few weeks ago. Now Jamaica is in the rainy season. So it rained very heavy the other day. And then the next morning, I was cleaning up the veranda because there was a huge puddle of water just sitting there. And then she came over to the gate and she was like, you know, you guys were doing some drilling the other day and it rained heavy last night. And I noticed that the water just started leaking into the house again. So you're going to have to fix it. And I said, the drilling was done on the opposite side of the house. So it has absolutely nothing to do with your house. And since I came back, we've done absolutely no drilling on your side of the house. So there is nothing that we could have done that would have caused your house to leak. And then she was like, so what? I'm going to have to pay for it. And I was like, yes, it's not my responsibility. And then she went on to try to convince me that I'm the one that should be fixing her roof. And I was firm in my position. I let her know that it's not my responsibility. And then she gave me attitude and she said, all right, I'll deal with it. And then she went to drop her daughter off. She came back. She called someone on the phone and she was telling that person, oh, Mr. Allen's grandson is telling me that they're not going to fix the roof and I have to fix the roof. And then she came back over to me and no joke, this is what she said to me. Javon, so you're telling me that I'm the one that's going to have to fix my roof? And I was trying to explain to her that I did exactly what she was asking me to do to try to resolve the issue, but she was not listening. She just said, yes or no? And I was like, yes. And then she said, no, y'all gonna fix this. And then she started calling after my grandpa, Mr. Allen, Mr. Allen. And then she went back inside. Then she came back outside. And when she came back over, she was like, even if it's a case where he have to pay 50 and I have to pay 50, that's okay. But I'm not going to be the only one that has to fix my roof. And I just looked at her and I said, the way that you're acting is unnecessary. And it came to a point where she was like, she has a video and she could show me the video. And when she showed me the video, the phone was so close to the wall that I couldn't see which wall in the house that it was. And you could barely even see the water running down the wall. The way that she made it sound was like her house was flooded. But I ended up going inside and I looked at the wall and there was just a little bit of water dripping down the wall. And she had a couple of shirts and towels up against the side of the wall so that it could soak up the water. And before I went to her house, I said, all right, if it's on the side that's connected to our house, then I'll pay half and you pay half. So I went inside and I saw that it was that side of the house. So I was like, all right, we can go 50-50. And when I said that, she was like, and then she went on to claim that I don't know how to talk to people. She doesn't know who I think I am and this, that, and the third. And then I saw the mason that applied the roof coating down the street and I told him to come over because I wanted to ask him a question. Because there was 2 separate occasions where we applied the roof coating to the roof. So I wanted to get some clarification. So I asked him if the second time that he was applying the roof coating around the house, if he applied it to that same spot. And he said yes. But then he went with me upstairs to look at the spot and we could see that the crack opened up again. And then I did some research because they were blaming it on the drilling, but I knew that it couldn't have been that because we have done a ton of drilling on the opposite side of the house within that time frame of us resolving that problem. And she had not complained about it raining, and it rained heavy several times since last year. So after doing my research, I found out that the sun could dry up the material, and that's why we were seeing that the crack had opened up. We just finished going through the dry season in Jamaica, so it now made a lot of sense why the crack opened back up. So I went over to her and I explained that I did some research and I found out that the reason why the crack opened back up is because of how hot it's been. The sun dried up the material and it had nothing to do with Hilti. But because I felt bad and because I was trying to be a good person, I explained to her that I will purchase the material. However, she will have to pay for the labor costs. And then after that, I didn't hear anything from her or about the situation for the next few days until I woke up one morning and I realized that she bust the windows out my house. I think that was real pathetic and I'll never forget it, but I just let it go. You got to understand that on your journey, you're going to encounter people like this and you should not stoop down to their level. Just let the world take care of them. Misery loves company. She's a single mother with 2 kids and she does absolutely nothing for a living. What I find to be so funny is that the same day that she bust a window, it rained the entire day and the entire night. I thought that was a very interesting way for God to send his message. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified every time that I make a new post. Until next time.